Next item.
Approval of the minutes for September 11th.
So moved. Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item.
Unfinished business, there is none. On to item D1. Communication dated October.
That's fine. My light's going out. Would like to welcome the Auditor General, her staff, and her guest. And if you could please introduce them, Ms. Cora.
Marcy Cora, Auditor General.
Will Hamner, Audit Manager.
Oh, John Kellett, Supervisory Auditor.
Linda Hendricks, Project Consultant.
If the guest could introduce himself.
Hi, Carol Osterberry, Health Officer for Health, Human, and Veteran Services.
Kamal Kapoor, Finance Director for the Department of Health, Human, and Veteran Services.
Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please proceed, Ms. Cora.
What you have before you today is our performance audit report on the Department of Health, Human, and Veteran Services, the Women, Infants, and Children's Program. So I'm going to turn it over to the audit team, and they'll go through the report.
Good morning. We basically had one objective for this performance audit, and that was the oversight and monitoring of the WIC program and the sub-recipients that were contracted to administer WIC services within certain local communities. The engagement scope was for the period of October 1, 2016 through March 31st, 2018. To address the objectives, we conducted interviews with management, had inquiries, examination of documents, observations, as well as reviewed the state of Michigan's MyWIC database to assess statistical and quantitative data related to the enrollees. Just some background information. WIC is a federally funded program that serves low and moderate income, pregnant, breastfeeding, and postpartum women, infants, and children up to the age of 5 who have nutritional-related health concerns. The state and the county has entered into contractual agreements to administer the WIC services to eligible residents and their children. The average amount of funding or program expenditures over the 2 years that we reviewed were approximately $3.47 million. The WIC provides supplemental foods, appointments with registered dietitians, referrals to other programs, and in addition to other services, it also conducts lead testing. The county provides services at 8 locations throughout the following municipalities as indicated up here on the slide. That would be Wayne, Sumter Township, Taylor, Hamtramck, Garden City, Inkster, Southgate, and Lincoln Park. The county, as I indicated, has subcontracted with 3 sub-recipients to provide services in 4 other communities, as indicated up on the slide. That's the city of Dearborn, the city of Highland Park, city of River Rouge, and Redford Township. On an annual basis, the county's caseload is approximately 20,000 participants, or roughly 92.2% of the state's required caseload of 22,000. We must applaud Carol and her group. They have been doing an excellent job, and I'd just like to put that on the record. The 3 sub-recipients that are assigned to handle the other 4 local communities, they have a caseload of 8,950 clients, or approximately 41% of the state's required caseload. We, based on our assessment of the WIC program as well as looking at the subrecipient contracts, we found there were 6 areas of concern and 11 recommendations we believe could be strengthened to enhance the internal control environment and enhance fiscal monitoring over the subrecipients administering those services to the county residents. 4 of the 6 are considered to be control deficiencies, which are classified as relatively low risk, and 2 are considered significant deficiencies, which we deem are medium risk and should be addressed by management in the near term. As indicated, we did share our audit results with both WIC Management and Management and Budget, and they have, in principle, agreed with the 11 recommendations. With that, John and Linda will go over the balance of the presentation.
Okay, Linda Hendricks, Auditor General's Office. The first area of concern that we had during our review was reimbursement of holiday payroll. According to the contract terms with subrecipients, Article 15, Compensation, Section 15.0101 stipulates the county will not pay the subrecipients for overtime, holiday, or premium charges or benefits. During our review of subrecipient invoices submitted for the WIC program for reimbursement for fiscal year 2017, we noted that 3 subrecipients received reimbursement for holiday pay for their employees that had direct service hour wages on the WIC program. The holiday pay was under fringe benefits in the financial status report. Our recommendation, we recommend Management and Budget, in conjunction with WIC Program Management, implement formal policies and procedures for reviewing subrecipients' FSRs, financial reports, requests for reimbursement, which include ensuring verification of reported actual expenditures to supporting documentation prior to approving payment per the respective contracts.
Okay, and to the department, going forward, how do you intend to do the note of concern of the auditors?
Kamal Kapoor, Finance Director. Pausing, it's a broader issue, so I'll just speak broadly, and it would deal with each area on this report. I said before, when we was going through the CCS report, it was a blessing, because when you have, and because we wasn't doing this as a county, when you outsource programs, you typically have it in your head, it's not your responsibility. But I said the CCS was a blessing to audit, because by it being what's the term in the contract? Profit plus, whatever, cost reimbursement. It indicated that we had to do certain things. I'm tying that in because CCS definitely, but we have other programs throughout the county that we have outsourced, and we're not doing any monitoring. So with all that being said, as Mr. Brooks mentioned, they're hiring someone on the CCS side, but what we're doing at M&B, we're looking to hire a compliance person / to assist us with monitoring. Now, I'm in the process of writing up the job description and so forth and so on. So long story short, to answer your question, we're looking to hire somebody to assist us, because the way we're structured now, we don't have enough staff to do that across the board.
And we hear that at every meeting, so we appreciate your frankness.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Linda
yes.
Hendricks.
Commissioner Kleen, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I can just follow up on that for a minute, and I do appreciate, as the chair said, the frankness on this. So you mentioned CCS, now we're mentioning WIC, but it also indicates we have other outsourced programs.
Correct.
That we, I think it would be good to have a discussion, I don't know, with maybe the chair of this committee or the chair of the commission, and let's get out in front of all of this and say, okay, these are the other programs that we're going to be covering by, adding an additional person, just so that there's, no surprises down the road. I mean, we're trying to put everything together. Administration's trying to get all of the operations running better. So I just think we should have a discussion somewhere with the commission. I don't know if it's the chair of the commission or the chair of this committee, to say, okay, this is what we're looking at in the future. These are the programs that we need to do more on. I think that would be helpful, again, in the no surprises, and we don't wind up in some big fight. So I would just recommend that based on this discussion.
And I'm speaking to our department.
Right.
Now, I have talked to Matthew, but of course he's out right now.
Right.
So I'm more so speaking to the Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services.
Yeah, well, it might be something for the chief operating officer to discuss with the commission, but I do think, I don't want to wait in drips and drabs and, have other kind of audits come up and we plow the same ground. Let's just, everybody know where the deficiency is and what we're doing to correct it ahead of time. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this position that you're writing up the guidelines for, has this been budgeted?
No, it has not been budgeted. When we got deeply into the CCS, we realized that it's a broader issue across the board.
Sure.
So, but I think, I don't want to misquote you, but it's better to do this than not.
Oh, no,
So
no,
we have to
I
do it,
totally
but-
agree with what you're doing. I'm just wondering if you're going to run into a roadblock when you get ready to get it through management and budget.
No, I have buy-in already because they know one thing about our department, when it was consolidated, folks realized that this department got most of the grants. So we definitely needed this department. So as of now, I got buy-in, we just got to work out the details.
Oh, okay. So management and budget is on board with it?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
and just to provide more clarity, it also talked about instead of being housed in our department, this position will be housed in the grants division under Shantika, because, if they report to me and they're checking the accounting work, little conflict of interest. So it was strongly suggested that they just go to the grants division, but housed, responsible for our department, since we got a lot of the grants.
Follow up. So will this person be doing work for other departments other than
No, just our department.
just your department?
Right, because again, I think out of the county, we got about 45% of the grants. I mean, this department has a lot of grants, a lot of responsibility.
Commissioner Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I really appreciate that answer. That's really great that you're doing that. I just took a class from SEMCOG on writing grants, and grant compliancy is enormous. I had no idea what it takes to write a grant until I learned how. And so they hold you responsible to so many requirements. I don't know how you'd find time to do that on top of your regular duties. So to find somebody who specializes in that, I think will help audits, not just this particular one, but other ones that come our way, because it's, like the chair said, it's something we run into frequently. So, thank you.
Correct, and can I add a little bit? And because the emphasis, and we know for the most part, when you get these grants, you're happy about getting the grant, but who read every page of the
Right.
grant? Of all the details, so just having someone that's their primary focus would help. And we talked about it yesterday in HSS, it's a lot of federal grants, it's a whole nother level. And it's commonly known, and I don't want to say it, but like with Head Start, for example, it's commonly known the federal government is not going to give you enough money to run the program efficiently. So if you don't have in your mind, you got to hire extra staff to help run the program. And most people want to take that shortcut, so we know that story.
Yeah, and relative to funding, you say you need another person, and it's not in the budget. Maybe Mr. Abbo could weigh in on that for a quick second.
I'm sure room could be found in the budget if a need is indicated.
So I think we justify the needs indicated,
Oh,
so.
absolutely. I mean, Kamal is absolutely correct. Knowing the rules of particularly federal grants is really important because, they'll take away funding or disallow a cost based on, not checking the box properly. So knowing the rules, I would view a position like this as that position would probably save or pay for themselves by efficiency created and getting the complete amount of the grant rather than having to, return any money to the federal government because of any kind of deficiency or disallowed cost. So again, knowing the rules, and they are very intricate, because in a past life, I've audited federal programs, and they're very, very detailed and specific rules that you need to follow, and a lot of hurdles that you need to jump.
So I guess my conclusion is, based on your remarks, you don't see a pushback from the administration on that position.
I can't understand why there would be a pushback.
Okay, thank you.
I could just
Ms.
add-
Cora.
And I also think putting the grants division is probably the best place for this person because they have all the training on the federal grants, so it's a perfect spot.
Yeah, because while I love y'all, I don't want to keep coming here for this.
Okay. Please proceed.
Okay, Linda Hendricks again, Auditor General's Office. Our second area of concern was timely submission of the financial statement reports, or FSRs, to the WIC program. According to the subrecipient contract terms, the FSRs must be received by the county within 15 days of the close of each calendar month. In addition, per federal regulations 200.305, all subrecipients are to be paid within 30 days from receipt of reimbursement billing. Based on our review, we determined the WIC Administration Office has not implemented a formal process that establishes procedures to acknowledge the evidence of the date of invoice receipt from the subrecipients to the WIC Administration Office. As a result, we were unable to verify the actual date of receipt submitted by the subrecipients for 46 out of the 53 FSRs reviewed. Our recommendation, we recommend management within the WIC program, in order to be compliant with contract terms as well as federal regulations, establish policies and procedures for acknowledging and documenting the date of receipt of subrecipient monthly FSRs.
So would you like to respond to that, or you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. Please proceed.
Okay. Continuing on with slide 12, our next area of concern, and this can be found on page 9 of the report. This deals with WIC invoices lacking proper supporting documentation. We had requested from management and budget supporting documentation for 54 invoices that were submitted for payment by the 3 subrecipients. And based on our review, we noted that proper support for the invoice was either not included in the packet, or what was provided was not sufficient to support the reported expenditures and payment of the invoice. And we also identified that there were no written policies or procedures regarding the review/reconciliation process of the actual expenditures. Within the 3 subrecipient contracts under Section 1503, titled Method of Payment, it stipulates that the FSR requests for reimbursement or payment for reimbursable expenses, the appropriate receipts must be attached prior to payment. And we did note the actual FSR form also stipulates that appropriate documentation is available and will be maintained for the required period to support the costs and receipts reported. However, we found no evidence where receipts were being requested by management. A consequence of this is not having adequate procedures in place to review and verify the reported expenditures prior to submitting the FSR invoices for payment. This increases the risk that county's WIC program and M&B might be reimbursing program costs that are either overstated or contain disallowed expenses. And this brings us to our third recommendation. We identified this as a control deficiency. In order to address the risk that payments are made without proper support, we recommend both management and budget, and in conjunction with WIC program management, perform the following. It's a 3-part recommendation. The first part, implement formal policies and procedures for the verification of WIC actual expenditures prior to payment of the submitted voucher. 2, ensure every submitted FSR has adequate supporting documentation. And an example, the actual receipts or vendor financial records be attached with that prior to approving payment to comply with the respective contracts. And then finally, work with the M&B Division of Grants Management to conduct periodic audits of the subrecipients' reported program expenditures in order to ensure that they are in compliance with the grant award. And management has agreed with this. Okay. Our next area of concern, this can be found on page 10 of the report. This is where we identified the need to strengthen monitoring over the SCO audits. According to the state of Michigan, the Michigan WIC policy, they implemented this in May of 2017 for local WIC offices to implement audits for single certifier offices to prevent and detect employee fraud and abuse. And these are offices where they're usually staffed by one individual, so there's a lot of risk there. The county's WIC coordinator or designee must conduct an audit of all certification records within 14 days of the certification at the offices. And the audit also requires an evaluation form be completed after the audit, which summarizes the findings and identifies the corrective measures to be taken. And I think here on page 10 of the report, we show beginning of a table, but we found a variety of inconsistencies with the audits for 5 of the 7 SCO audits that we looked at. And we found noted exceptions with the single certifier audit evaluation form also that's required to be completed. Wayne County WIC Management is not ensuring that the mandated state audits of the SCO offices are completed in a manner as prescribed by the policy. So this brings us to our 4th recommendation.
I'll jump in on that one for a quick second. Have you actually implemented any of these actions with the staff to address the SCO audits? And then I have another question for you to answer. When was the last time that we did an audit, this type of audit in the county?
Of the WIC program?
Yes.
It's been many years, but I know we've done one in the past, I'd say probably 7 or 8 years ago, maybe a little bit longer.
Is it similar stuff that you found in that one as this one?
You may.
Through the chair, yeah, the audit objectives for that particular audit was somewhat different than this one.
Oh, okay.
So, no, we didn't look at this area, so they were like 2 separate audits.
But this is a program that has been in the single audit several times for over the last 4 or 5 years.
I just wanted to give them a chance to think about my question.
And yes, absolutely. When this came up, and as you see, it was really due to the fact that we had a gap in our compliance. One of our managers, her big part of her job responsibilities is compliance with the WIC policies. And this was just when we had, someone had resigned. We were in the process of getting a new employee on board. She is on board fully, and we've already implemented all of it, because this came up, I can't remember how many months ago, and we immediately worked with her, and we've got this tightened up now. So this will be on the corrective action plan as, here was the corrective action plan, and it has been implemented. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Okay. So the 4th recommendation, then we recommend the WIC program management ensure all audits for the SCO offices are completed in the manner and instructions described in the MyWIC policy and within the prescribed 14-day period, and also include within the county's WIC program annual training, a training session on completing the SCO audit and evaluation tool forms in accordance with MyWIC, and a policy to ensure compliance with state of Michigan rules and regulations.
Commissioner Kling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question's actually for the auditors here. I see under this one, you list the SCO, single, whatever. And those apparently are all the county offices. You don't mention the 3 places that we outsource these contracts to. Is there something, are those not an SCO? they're not included in here, and I was just curious as to why.
Right, because the SEO are the smaller offices where there's only one employee. Those 3 subrecipients are large offices that have multiple, they have the 2 employees there.
Okay.
Right there, like Sumter.
So it's just
Is
the
a-
county
is a
offices
smaller
that are
office.
SCOs?
Correct.
Okay. All right,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
Okay. So turning to slide 16, our next area of concern, this deals with, and this can be found on page 12 of the report, this deals with the WIC subrecipient misallocated costs. During our review, we identified one of the 3 subrecipients that had discrepancies between their submitted line item budget and their actual expenses reported for those line items. We had selected a sample of 4 months out of the 18 monthly FSR billing submitted to WIC for reimbursement, and also requested management to provide supporting documentation. And from our review of 21 invoices from 7 different vendors, we determined the actual recorded expenditure didn't align with the FSR budgeted costs for the type of expenditure or service that was incurred. We also identified there were no written policies and procedures related to a monthly review and assessment of line item cost reported by the subrecipients. Under the Federal Code of Regulations, Section 200, allocable costs and also direct costs, they require costs incurred for the same purpose in like circumstances must be treated consistently. And the consequence of this not having adequate procedures in place in order to monitor the reporting of the actual program expenditures increases the risk that the reported expenses don't represent the true cost of the subrecipient's program activities. And that brings us to recommendation number 5, where we recommended management and budget in conjunction with the WIC program management establish, A, implement formal policy and procedures that mandate the subrecipient's program expenditures, and they reflect the actual program costs incurred and is reported on a correct budgeted line item. And then B, on a periodic basis, require at a minimum, a general ledger is submitted with the monthly FSR invoices as supporting documentation of reported program expenditures prior to approving payment per the respective contracts. And management has agreed with this.
We're all rowing in the same direction. That's a good thing.
And moving to slide 18, and this is our final area of concern. Here, we identified a subrecipient not performing a true-up of costs, and this can be found on page 13 of the report. We had identified during our review one subrecipient that had used cost pooling in the reporting of WIC program expenditures. And the subrecipient stated that they use an allocation methodology to report a significant amount of their monthly program expenditures. The allocation methodology that they use is comprised of from monthly full-time employees for all the programs that they administer. And we found their numerous programs included entities that were for-profit, nonprofit, and then also other governmental entities as well. We also noted all reported monthly FSR expenditures that they had reported were identified as direct costs, and that there were no indirect costs reported over the scope period of our review. And we kind of give a definition of direct and indirect costs here. The direct costs are those costs which can be identified specifically with a particular cost program objective in mind. So, a cost that can be, identified immediately as, yes, it's for, like an example, if you have a building that you're using for a specific purpose that's only for that program, any costs related to that can be identified just to that. Whereas indirect costs are defined as those expenditures that do not meet a specific program objective, but these are allowable because the reported cost is for a common or joint purpose, benefiting more than just one cost objective. These would be like administrative costs. So we had selected the month of September 2017 in order to assess whether expenditures were reported correctly. And while we did identify that expenditures were reported as direct costs to the program, we identified some reported expenditures that did not directly benefit the county's WIC program. For example, administrative wages for executive employees of the subrecipient and those subsequent overhead costs that go along with them should have been reported as indirect costs because there was no direct benefit specifically to the county's WIC program.
So that would be like a chargeback?
Yes, that would be like a chargeback, yeah. Because of the allocation methodology used, the subrecipient charged the WIC program based on the number of employees within the company and not the actual costs incurred. The grantee, meaning Wayne County, does allow the subrecipient to be reimbursed for indirect costs on the FSR once the costs are determined. So the indirect costs are allowed. They just didn't use them. In addition, we found no evidence that a true-up analysis was performed during 2017 in order to ensure that only actual program costs are being reimbursed. And this brings us to our final recommendation, number 6, two-part recommendation where we recommended management and budget in conjunction with the grants division, A, implement policies and procedures that mandate that the subrecipients report program expenditures as direct only when it specifically reflects the actual cost for administering the county's WIC program, and report program expenditures that do not directly benefit the county's WIC program as indirect costs. And then B, ensure a true-up of the subrecipients' reported program expenditures is performed during the fiscal year. And management has agreed with this. On slide 21, in the report, we also listed some of the significant accomplishments that we identified with the WIC program during our review. They had received a special recognition in 2017 for some of their program work that the state management evaluation team felt that they excelled in. And then also, we looked
At
at,
this point, I'm sorry, is this where we give Carol Asterbury and her crew a round of applause? Is this the point? Thank you.
one thing I'd like to point out too, I did look at the external federal audits that were conducted for 2016, 17, and 18, and we did see a progression towards a decrease in the number of findings that were identified for the department. I think it went from 6 in 2016 down to 2 in 2017, and then there were none in 2018. So we saw that as a progression. So,
Well, let's not give her too much applause. Keep going.
yeah.
Can I, through the chair?
Yes.
I definitely want to give support to Carol, because one thing, we briefly talked about it yesterday, but out of the department, Carol's division have over 50 business units. So managing just her department, I think we talked about the CPBC yesterday, and it's just constantly changing. We have to change amounts every quarter, and managing 50 business units within the division that your funders are changing on a quarterly basis is a lot of moving parts. And so under Carol's leadership, and also under my leadership and the finance staff, I think we're doing good, but I think adding this other position across the board would help right now. So once we get that, we'll see where it goes. But I want to make sure Carol's doing an excellent job.
To the point, Commissioner
That point,
Coleman.
yes. I think that the two of you make a great team.
Yeah.
I think that you're doing a fantastic job, and that the two of you, with both of your expertise, working together, you're making good things happen.
Commissioner Coleman, you're out of order. You'll have to leave the rest of your muffin on the table. Thank you. Okay. Please proceed.
Okay. So, in conclusion, corrective action plan will be requested approximately 30 days or more after the report is formally received and filed by the full board of the commission. And that completes my presentation, our
you.
presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the Auditor General, her staff, and also the department. I think it's rare that we get the departments and the auditors rowing in the same direction up front. So we appreciate the good work that your staff done and also the department. Thank you. Commissioner Kleen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to raise something I wasn't sure. Back in the background at the beginning of the report, twice you refer to something called the state-required caseload. And then you give us a couple of numbers, that we have 20,000 people that are receiving services, and that's 95% of the state-required caseload. And then when you talk about our 3 subrecipients, you give a percentage. What is the state's required caseload? What is that?
That is a number that, Carol Osterberry, that the state comes up with for every WIC program as far as how many recipients, receive benefits. I can tell you, in the state of Michigan and nationwide, the number of, just individuals in this whole nation, we are seeing a downward trend in, people who are applying for WIC benefits. I look at that as, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, the economy getting better, so less people, who are in need and low income, but yet I also know there are a lot of, like now I look at Wayne County, I know there are a lot of Wayne County residents who do need WIC benefits. So we also work to, regionally, there was some work last year about like just even making more advertisement for, sign up for WIC. Because it is a really, and, as this whole audit went, I spent time with Lynn and Kim. We would sit there and just listen to this conversation happening between our registered dietitian and a WIC mom, and, I saw what it took for these, moms to come in, and, but they learn a lot about, good nutrition and, just almost parenting skills and family, and how to, all of that. So, yes, the state does have this base caseload number. We report that. We monitor that every single week or every single month. But that also is then fed into, like I say, state and national statistics. It's an,
Well, how do
I look at it, how do they determine it?
Yeah, because,
I don't
and then when
know.
you put, in front of it required caseloads, that
Right.
sounds like there's some penalty if you don't hit it, or, so, what is it supposed to be? Somehow the state knows there's 22,000
And I-
odd people that ought to be getting WIC in Wayne County? I mean,
Right, yeah.
Just trying to see how this works.
I honestly don't know how they come up with that number, and that number has stayed the same now for, I think, at least 2 or 3 years.
and then what do they tell you? You have to hit this number?
It's a percentage of, is what they would like, but like I say, we report this up and we monitor it, and, then we monitor,
Okay.
how many
So
clients.
it's just one of those things that's hard to determine what,
I'm sure they have a formula, I just don't know that.
yeah, okay.
But like I
I
said, we
just
do,
thought it was
right.
curious, required caseload, what does this mean? Where does this come from?
Like I said, my big take on it is it's interesting, I know the economy is getting better, but I do know there are, many families out
Okay.
there that can use these services.
Okay, Commissioner Coleman and Commissioner Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me ask you, with the UAW and many others being laid off,
Yeah,
Um,
I was going to ask the same thing. Go
Oh,
ahead.
great minds work.
Okay, please proceed.
How will, will they be eligible? Because, they're going to have those same needs as,
Right.
the laid off and folks from the UAW and the offshoots.
Certainly, right.
But those children are going to need services that they can't provide with $250 a week.
I know, yeah. Yes,
So-
and it's based on income, and then a child has to be, they receive the services up through their 5th birthday, then I think like that month, like, let's say if a child had their 5th birthday this month, they will still receive services for the month of October, and then, essentially, they're considered 6 in November.
So will these constituents be able to, say, walk in and get services?
Yep. There obviously is an enrollment, process, but yes, we
Will it be
take.
a prolonged?
No, I don't think it's prolonged, no. We basically, it's, if someone walks in, says, hi, we need WIC, we do what we've got to do, get that first appointment, and then set them up for their next scheduled.
Then we
Yep.
need to let them know. We need to
Yeah.
let the.
Yeah, that's a
the
good point.
strikers know that there's someplace they can go to get services
Yep.
for their children.
Yes.
Commissioner Webb?
Thank you. To that point, I'm just going to follow up on her question, because, I was thinking the exact same thing. So we don't know how long that's going to go on with those folks.
Yeah.
And if you could send us a list or direct us to
yeah.
there, because, our people are all over the county, and obviously you have all these different
Right.
places. And I'm not real familiar with the process. Would people just walk into these locations, or is there something they do online, or?
And make a lot of them will call our call center, get that first appointment. There's multiple ways. So, I'll work with Mike McElrath, our new public information officer, and, get you, and then work on, yeah.
Send over
right.
to them and help them
Yeah.
access your benefits?
Sure.
'Cause, I think that you would be a big help.
Because
Do-
many of them don't even know.
Yeah, that's
Do groups,
true.
You're right.
do
Yeah.
groups like Wayne Metro and others, do they have your information? Do you
I'm
coordinate
sure
with
they
those
do.
folks?
Yes. But like I said, I'll work with Mike on maybe a kind of cleaned up new one-page fact sheet for enrollment. Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Next, are you through?
Yes.
Next item, Madam Clerk.
Item E, such other matters as may be properly.
We have an addenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, is there a motion to receive and file?
I just did that.
Is there support?
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item.
Item E, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
Is there any such other matters? Question about this addenda. Is that supposed to go with this meeting? Oh, okay, why? Okay, good. Okay, there are none. Next item.
Item F, public comments.
Is there anybody from the public who'd like to comment? Does anybody out there want to talk about the WIC program? Okay. Anybody from the public like to comment? Okay, next item, Madam Clerk.
Item G, adjournment.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, because
Nice job.
Oh, thank
we
you.
can get that sheet that she's talking about to region 1 and 1A.